Hello, friends. I hope you guys are all doing well. So I wanted to talk today about the MAHA Mirage. Right? This is going to be about eugenics, wellness, profiteering, and the hijacking of health. Now, this is so important to talk about because so many people are caught up in this. Good, well-meaning people who truly want health freedom. They don't want to be told what to do, right? They don't want to be controlled. They want to be able to make their own decisions. They want to have informed consent. They don't want to be pushed into something that they don't feel comfortable with. I mean, that should be at the center of any health system. Consent, right? Everything should be consent-based. Everybody should have options to choose from, safe options to choose from, a wide array of options to choose from, alternative options to choose from, Western, Eastern, integrated options to choose from, and should have access to that. It should be accessible, right, to everybody. And we're going to talk a little bit about this, shift, you could say, from within our systems, from this very Western medical model into what they are labeling as a wellness model. However, that it couldn't be farther from the truth. So we're going to unpack it a bit. We're going to talk about the shadow side of all of this. We're going to talk about everything. So, and I hope you joined in on this conversation too, because this is so important to have. I know, like, for me personally, like, I have always been very wellness minded. I used to go to, little health stores growing up. I loved alternative medicine, and and I have my own healing journey has definitely incorporated a lot of non-Western medicine, whether that be spiritually, emotionally. I love body work. I think body work is one of the greatest things. I love energy work. I think energy work is one of the greatest things. I think, focusing on food as medicine and sitting with your feelings and not just running to some, pharmaceutical quick fix. Like, I think those things are very important, but we also live in a specific type of world, and because we live in these systems, and I'm not, I'm talking about like capitalism, right? We are naturally going to have a response within the body to being exploited and being, extracted for our labor, and being lied to constantly. We're going to have feelings regarding that, and when we are forced to essentially be able to take care of ourselves and our family, like, sometimes we need that quick fix. Sometimes we don't have the luxury of, heading out to a retreat every month or whatever it may be, or being able to go get acupuncture. Health insurance doesn't cover a lot of this. Some it does, but, being, able to have access to these different options. And I'm the type of person, like, I will spend a lot of money on my health and my wellness, like, even though I don't have it disposably, like, that's important to me. But that's me, right? It's, these things exist because of the systems we live within, and we need to find a healthier balance. And that's really, really what it comes down to, is this integrated approach, a balanced approach, a consent-based, informed consent, and also evidence-based. Like, there needs to be evidence behind it. And the wellness industry, of course, is unregulated, and I'm not saying that it should be regulated, although I think there should be some regulations, right, in order to protect people. It shouldn't be based from, this control, this way of controlling things. And we are moving in that direction. Not saying that it's going to be regulated, because it's a wild, wild west out there, but the control aspect, the elimination of these other options, the whole talk about these wellness farms. Well, is that an option? What happens when these people reintegrate into society? Is this a choice? Is this something that's forced on them? It's just really icky. It's really icky, and it's really scary, to be honest, because it's health, right? It's our health, it's our well-being. So, welcome back to Breaking the Spell. I had things kind of ordered, but I felt that this was an important video to do, so I'm going to move into this space. We're going to talk about how spiritual wellness, anti-vax rhetoric, and purity culture have merged into something far more dangerous. And before I lose you, I don't want, I know there are a lot of people out there who are anti-vaccine. I understand that COVID may have radicalized certain people because they felt forced or coerced into something that they weren't comfortable with and didn't have much long-term studies behind it. I understand all of that. I remember that time. I lived through it. My own decision-making process was stressful. And there is a lot of people are in between space. I myself, having 2 kids, working in the birth world, I understand people's concerns around vaccinating their little newborn and all of those shots. I get it. Right? I get it. And I'm not going to come in here with this anti-vax are bad, but there are, we have to look at the big picture. We have to look at both sides. When we get polarized into one or the other, we miss the big picture. And it's and taking time to take a step back and look outside of just your own reality, right? Because we live within a collective, and it's not just about you, is important. So we're going to talk about RFK Jr. Well, I know a lot of people have supported him. I don't get it, but okay. I understand. He knows how to really tap in to people's fears, to people's biases, to people's vulnerabilities. He's good, right? And that's why we are where we are. And so much of it is fueled from misinformation. And while anecdotal evidence is important, right? Again, big picture awareness. So specifically, it's about the space that RFK Jr., let's say he's coming from. It's not it's not well-intentioned. It's not well-intentioned. Although it may appear well-intentioned, if we look deeper, there is more to come into awareness of in order to see that bigger picture. So we're going to talk about his push for a national autism registry, the rise of MAHA, making America healthy again, and how this health freedom movement is being used to sell control disguised as care, right? So everything that the health freedom, or perhaps many people in the MAHA movement, proclaim it as a center of their movement is actually by giving their power away to RFK Jr., you are selling control, right? You are essentially, it's moving even deeper into control mechanisms, into eliminating options for people, into less knowledge, less information, right? And those things are important to make your own health decisions. It's not about something being sold to you as a good option or the healthier option or the better option. It is about you making that choice and that decision for yourself and having access to all the information that you need in order to do so and to feel confident in that, right? Informed consent. And this is everywhere where we have profit-driven systems. We have hidden agendas. We have where we have control. I work as a doula. I see it all the time. All the time. I get it. Right? If it wasn't for certain aspects, who knows? I could be in this whole MAHA movement too. Like, I am very aware of that because I do value wellness, and I tend to go towards more natural options. And again, this isn't about me. I'm just sharing the space that I'm coming from. So the autism registry, and I know there's kind of been some backtracking on it, but he put it out there, and it's dangerous. It's eugenics in disguise. He recently proposed creating a national registry of autistic Americans as part of his plan to eradicate autism. Right, so this isn't science. This is eugenic ideology wrapped in wellness language. Autism is not a disease. It is a neurodivergence. It is a person developing differently, neurologically than your typical average person. Those with ADHD, right? That's similar. It's a developmental shift from normative, right? From normal, neurotypical, right? Development to another direction, and it's a spectrum. And the way that it's been studied and looked at has shifted and changed throughout the years, and you see these people who are older now being diagnosed or perhaps self-diagnosing themselves, right? And it has become an identity, and it just is, right? People identify as autistic, whether they're diagnosed or not, right? They are that is their reality, right? It's not a disease in that sense where somebody else can catch it, right? Studies show that it's likely genetic, and then yes, of course, something's going to trigger that developmental shift, right, into that spectrum, right? So, and again, I'm not an expert. I do have my brother's been diagnosed, so it's close to me in some sense. So I do have a understanding of it from that perspective, and I get it. Like, as a parent, like, you are constantly looking for signs of autism, but so much of that is based in fear, right? The fear of my child being autistic, being nonverbal, et cetera, et cetera. All right, and without going too far, like, that's number one. And number two, registries, tracking of individuals is the first step, has been the first step in all historical atrocities. They still are, right? So it's dangerous. Anytime you mention a registry of a particular type of person and this tracking of them, what about health privacy? What about privacy in general? If you start tracking people in the name of health, it never ends with care. It ends with control, right? It's othering. Let's talk about the anti-vax pipeline and the illusion of sovereignty. Let's be honest, not everyone questioning vaccines is extreme. I touched on that earlier. Many people are navigating trauma, Many are drawn to ancestral healing, somatic care, or spiritual practice because it actually helps. I'm involved in a lot of holistic health groups, and the amount of extremism in it, I am amazed at just how extreme, when people are literally willing to like put their lives on the line for a belief, a setting themselves apart. I just think it's extreme, right? There was this one, so I'm in this one holistic health group here locally, and there was this, actually a comment or a post, and I think I want to read it. So I'm going to pause here and I'm going to find it and we're going to talk about it. Okay, so I have the post. I don't remember the exact original post, right? But one of the comments was in there. It had something to do with like somebody was getting divorced and they were just kind of thinking about, right, what comes next, and they had some young kids who were unvaccinated, and most likely she's not going to be able to stay at home. She's going to have to put the kids in daycare. She's going to have to look for work, and she was also worried about the divorce, like mandating some type of vaccine, like her soon-to-be ex-husband, like it being mandated, and sometimes that happens, right, where you have one parent wants their child vaccinated and one parent who doesn't, right? Then you got to kind of battle out in court. But and going back to the extremism, right? One of the responses was, I was in your boat and I chose to tolerate him and avoid medical court conflict. So rather than choosing to leave behind perhaps a toxic marriage, and I obviously don't know the dynamics of this particular relationship, and maybe the fact that she could cope with it was the best thing. I don't know. But she writes back, hold on. She writes back and she says, she chose to tolerate him and avoid medical court conflict. She says, it was the wrong choice. He significantly damaged me and both of our sons. If I had to do it all over again, I'd have kicked him to the curb while I was pregnant with our second and fought the battles that came, because at least those battles weren't behind our front door praying for you. So essentially, rather than dealing with medical court conflict that might end up where she would have to get her kids vaccinated, she chose to stay in a toxic marriage. She says that was the wrong choice. But this is the kicker. One of the responses was, rather than compassion and understanding of, wow, that must have been really hard, or I get it, yeah, holding on to these really extreme things might not be the best option, right? So there's that. She writes back, one of the responses was, so you vaccinated your kids? And I remember when I read that actually had one like. It was so telling. Like, so that is the most important thing in everything, right? That's very extreme, right? Rather than taking a balanced perspective of, okay, so yes, there are vaccine injuries are a very real thing. Autoimmune responses from vaccines are a very real thing. A person, a baby, a child can be injured from vaccines, but they can also get a disease and die by not being vaccinated, like we see with some of these measles cases. They didn't receive the MMR, which is the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine, and they ended up getting it and dying. A lot of the conversations I see out there is, well, they didn't receive the right medical care, and I don't know. Right? I don't know what kind of medical care they received in that situation, and I know that the medical system is not the most caring and compassionate. And so I don't know, but it's that, like, you have to take that, when I say you have to, I don't mean that, but taking a balanced approach to a risk-benefit analysis and assessment for you individually. So if you have autoimmune disorders in your family, right, maybe you need to have a conversation with your doctor and your fears around vaccines, and maybe you got to look into an alternative lifestyle, right? Because here in California, they don't have medical exemptions, they don't have religious, and it sucks, right? Because your options are limited, and I'm not saying that that's right or that's okay, but it just, right, that is, we will encounter these things throughout life, right? And this extremism is really, can really do damage to a person when you hold something so tightly. I hope that makes sense. And we need space for all of that, right? For all of these things. Not, right, these two divergent extremes, but how can we come together and understand, right, as a whole, and begin to perhaps find a consensus model that works for everybody. When health becomes a spiritual hierarchy, when neurodivergence becomes something to cure, when care is only afforded to those who align, that is not sovereignty. That's purity politics in disguise. And the important thing is, like, all of this focus on, they are literally trying to force a connection between vaccines and autism in order to provide the ego fulfillment, right, for these promises during the campaign. It's a performance. It's not real. It's not rooted in any kind of actual scientific study. If you look at the people that they're pulling in to actually study these things, they're already steeped in bias around some connection between autism and vaccinations, which has been proven over and over that there is no direct correlation between the two. And that's dangerous, because if you take away a health tool like vaccinations from people, that is dangerous, right? We have a health tool that can help public health as well as individual health. We should be able to use it, right? And you start having studies that are not developed properly according to framework that has been established through consensus modeling for quite some time, right? This is problematic. This is dangerous. And if you don't wake up to that and see how that can play itself out, it's dangerous. Then we have the grift, right? The wellness grift beneath the glow. This isn't just ideology, it's business. RFK Jr. and his allies are cashing in on the fear that they are fueling. They're selling supplements, detox protocols, and natural cures for everything from ADHD to autism to long COVID. The wellness industry is a capitalist free-for-all. No regulation, no oversight, no accountability. Bunch of snake oil salesmen, and it's being framed as freedom. But what they're building is a spiritualized market of false promises, one that blames you for your illness while profiting off your desperation. I'm sure many of us can see that in some of our other experiences, right? And how that can also be carried into that field. MAHA is a Trojan horse. MAHA claims to liberate you from government control. But what is it that they're actually doing? They're dividing people, right? You got your clean, well people, and then you got your not well, your sick you're corrupted. So unvaccinated, detoxed, aligned, and then you have medicated, autistic, cautious, non-compliant, right? And they're being divided. It moralizes illness. It glorifies purity. And it punishes anyone who doesn't fit the mold. This is not health. Guess what this is? Spiritualized supremacy. It's health supremacy. It's wellness supremacy. If you're not healed, right, according to these natural methods, then you are sick and you are not well, and you're not a part of the in-group, right? I mean, do you really think these people are going to want to explore wellness in their life if they're being ostracized in this way? Not only that, but wellness costs money. Supplements cost money, a lot of money. And these detox protocols, it's a lot of supplements. It's a car payment a month, right? And I love supplements, don't get me wrong. I am not a pharmaceutical person. I understand their purpose and I've used them and they're there when I need them, but it's usually not my first go-to. I'm a very more naturally minded, holistic wellness person. But don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? Like, you need both. You need care. And that's really what we need to understand, is that we don't have care. We have systems that are rooted in profit, extraction, exploitation, right? That's the problem. Whatever medicine it is, that is the medicine, but the space it comes from, that is the key, right? And then we have his wellness farms. What are these? Coercive healing disguised as care. You got to feel the energy behind it. You got to feel the vibe behind it. And it can't just be the positive side of things, or I hope. But what is the shadow? Everything has a shadow. What is the negative aspect of it? You have to look at that. You cannot bypass that. If you want to be spiritually aligned and inclined and doing the work and all those things. I mean, you can. I'm not going to sit here and control you to only to see both sides. But if we want to grow and if we want to have more clarity, we must go into these spaces and these aspects and these parts of the truth. These wellness farms, these are places where people struggling supposedly with addiction, depression, or even neurodivergence can be sent to detox, farm, and relearn how to live. I was joking with one of my friends and I said, oh gosh, I want to go to one of those. On the government's dime, I'd love to go to a retreat, right? We were just, we were joking because she's, we're both neurodivergent, and it was just funny. But what happens when you come back to reality? To the same systems that you had to deal with before. People need help to live because of what the world we live in. I mean, every day I wake up and I must go through waves of depression and grief and oh my gosh, more babies are being killed and children being killed, in Gaza, and children in Africa are being forced to mine some toxic substance so we can have our electronics. And I hate that. I hate that I have to live in a world like that. and it hits me every day. And I've learned how to manage and cope with reality. But some people are still struggling. And so it's important that we have these options available to us so we can live a thriving existence in whatever way that allows us to do so, right? These whole wellness farms, it just sounds so pastoral, so natural, so healing. Until you ask, who decides who gets sent to these farms, right? Is this voluntary? Is this mandatory treatment? Where's the choice? Where's your agency? And where's your freedom? That's the question. I mean, I think every single one of us would love to go on a retreat on the government's dime or on our health insurance's dime. But is this a choice? Or is this something that's being mandated? Because camps and farms that change you or try and make you well, that is just fascism, right? That is dangerous. When people leave these farms, they will return to a system that harms them, because the problem isn't the individual, it's the system. A system that extracts, exploits, dehumanizes, and overstimulates. So of course people are depressed, of course they can't focus, of course they're taking medication. This isn't about healing, it's about containing people who don't conform. It's the false wellness industry on steroids. Who gets hurt the most? These narratives don't affect everyone equally. They disproportionately harm disabled and chronically ill people, fat and neurodivergent people, queer and trans folks, people who are already marginalized, Black, brown, and indigenous communities. These are the people cast as problems to fix or erased entirely from the vision of natural health. We see that a lot with, traditional healing that we will find within indigenous cultures, and how it's co-opted by the wellness industry. It's taken out of the hands of the wisdom holders and hollowed out and given back to you in some high price tag by a wellness influencer. And that's not okay. If the health movement doesn't protect the most marginalized, it's not liberation. It's just another form of control. So what does health freedom look like? True sovereignty isn't about compliance or purity. It's about relationship, consent, and interdependence. It honors the body. It respects difference. It makes space for ancestral wisdom and Western tools, and it includes those who are most often left out. So I wanted to close today with a practice, reclaiming autonomy, right? Because that's really what this is about. If you've ever been medicalized, shamed, or pathologized, the next part is for you. Place your hands on the part of your body that holds fear or judgment. Say, that wasn't care, that wasn't freedom, that was control. And breathe into your truth. My body is mine. My path is mine. I choose what healing looks like for me. And remember, I don't need to be pure to be powerful. I don't need to be perfect to be free. This is the work. The spell is breaking, and your truth is rising. I hope you like, share, subscribe. Check out my upcoming videos. There's going to be a lot of good stuff. Finally getting back in the saddle and have some clarity here. So please join in. Feel free to comment below on some of your own experiences. I really want to get some engagement in this space. And if you want to check out an article on this that I wrote in Substack, please check out that link below in the description and subscribe to me there on Substack as well. Hope you guys have a lovely day. Until next time, toodles.